Well, hey there. Let's just dive right into today's explainer, shall we? I am honestly so incredibly excited to share this with you today because we're looking at some absolutely groundbreaking insights from Julia Vieira. We're going to uncover how everyday routines, things that seem completely normal, things you and I probably do every single day without a second thought, are secretly sabotaging our mental energy. Seriously, we are looking at habits that are literally destroying our capacity to focus, messing with our memory, and just dragging down our overall mental health.
I mean, you know the feeling, right? Have you ever had one of those days where you feel like you're doing absolutely everything, but then you hit the end of the day, look back, and feel like you accomplished, well, nothing? It's just exhausting. But here's the kicker. What feels like top-tier productivity is actually a massive neurological trap. So, we're going to unpack exactly why that happens and, more importantly, how to fix it. Section 1. The Invisible Saboteur. Let's look at our brain-draining routines. Moving to Section 2, Focus Destroyers. This covers task management. So we all kind of like to think we're great at multitasking, right? Typing up an email, checking a quick WhatsApp message, maybe listening to something in the background. But here is the truth. True multitasking is a complete myth. Your brain literally cannot do it. No way. What we're actually doing is something called task switching. Imagine you're rapidly opening and closing dozens of mental drawers in fractions of a second. Your brain has to completely disengage from one task, scramble to reorient itself, and then engage with another. And let me tell you, that process burns a massive, and I mean massive, amount of cognitive energy. So here's your reality check. Cultural myths tell us that multitasking is the ultimate way to get lots done at once. That's the dream, right? But the actual science? It shows us that task switching just drains our energy to accomplish less. You pay a heavy cognitive tax every single time you switch gears. And that is exactly why you feel so incredibly wiped out by 5 p.m., but have zero finished projects to show for it. Now, if you want something really terrifying, consider this single number, 23. A study out of the University of California found that it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully recover your deep focus after just one interruption. Just one! 23 whole minutes. And yet, think about it. Most of us interrupt ourselves, every 3 minutes? We're essentially living in a constant state where deep concentration is literally impossible. And man, that leads us right into the notification trap. When your phone pings, you get this quick, cheap hit of dopamine. You know, the reward chemical, but it's super shallow. It leaves you just wanting more, which creates this vicious loop where you're constantly checking your phone. But neurologically speaking, this chronic exposure to notifications actually spikes your cortisol levels. That's your stress hormone. So your phone isn't just a harmless distraction, it's physically stressing your body out, destroying your memory, and honestly crushing your immune system in the process. Okay, Section 3. The anxiety traps. Let's talk about navigating perfectionism and mistakes. Let's break down the actual neuroscience here because it's fascinating. When we demand absolute perfection from ourselves, we trigger what's called an amygdala hijack. The amygdala is basically your brain's threat center. When it gets hyperactive, it literally blocks your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for all your brilliant creative thinking. And what about when we ruminate, obsessing over past mistakes? Well, that hyperactivates your default mode network. That's a brain network linked straight to negative self-reflection, and overworking it drastically increases your risk of anxiety and depression. So the really crucial takeaway here is that perfectionism, it's not actually about having high standards or striving for excellence. Not at all. Neuroscience actually shows us that it's a hidden, perfectly disguised fear of rejection. It forces your brain straight into survival mode. You become so terrified of criticism that you fall into total analysis paralysis. You plan, you tweak, you adjust forever, but you never actually execute the thing. But hey, there is an actionable fix to break that paralysis, and it's called the 80% rule. Basically, when a project or a task is 80% good, you publish it. You act on it. You release it out into the wild. You just have to accept that having something 80% perfect in the real world is infinitely better than having something 100% perfect that only exists inside your own head. You've got to let real-world feedback guide you, not some imaginary criticism. Now, as for the rumination piece, Julia Vieira offers this genuinely brilliant, super practical 3-step method. She calls it the closing ritual. So when you make a mistake, please don't replay it in your head for 3 days straight. Instead, do this. 1, write down exactly what happened. 2, write down the lesson you learned and what you are going to do differently next time. And 3, literally close the notebook. Just shut it. Move on. By doing this, you're actually telling your brain that the loop is closed, which allows it to finally release those negative neural pathways. Moving right along to Section 4, Cognitive and Social Load, Dealing with Information Overload. Right, so here we have two massive, sneaky drains on your energy: decision fatigue and the mentalization network. Look, mindless scrolling is not relaxing. I know it feels like it, but it actually forces your brain to make thousands of tiny, draining micro decisions. Click this, read that, scroll back up. It's exhausting. And people-pleasing. Oh boy. That taxes your mentalization network, which are the brain areas dedicated to constantly deciphering what other people expect of you. Both of these habits will leave your tank completely empty by the end of the day. To fight off that decision fatigue, you seriously need an information diet. Think about it. Just like a pro athlete protects their physical body with a super strict diet, you have got to protect your cognitive load. Define exactly what sources you actually want to consume. Set strict time limits for yourself. Have a clear, proactive purpose, like, say, reading for 30 minutes just to grow professionally. And then, ruthlessly cut the rest. Whatever you do, do not let an algorithm dictate your mental diet. And here is the really hard, cold neurology behind people-pleasing. Did you know that social rejection activates the exact same brain regions as physical pain? It's true. When someone rejects or criticizes you, your brain literally processes it like you've been physically punched. No wonder avoiding rejection feels completely necessary for our survival. But trying to avoid it by just pleasing everyone, that just drains the precious cognitive resources that you could be using to actually create and build your own life. Let's hit Section 5, the power of sleep. The ultimate reset button. 7. That is the absolute, non-negotiable minimum number of hours of sleep required for basic cognitive function. Not 6, not, I'll just catch up on the weekend. 7 hours. Guys, your life, your memory, and your emotional stability absolutely must be organized around protecting this number. It's that important. And here's exactly why it is totally non-negotiable. Look at what happens during your sleep's night shift. Your brain is busy transferring information from short-term to long-term memory. Without sleep, you literally cannot learn new things. Plus, deep sleep activates your lymphatic system, which is basically your brain's late-night cleaning crew. It sweeps in and removes toxins, including proteins that are actually associated with Alzheimer's. On top of that, sleep deprivation physically reduces the mass of your prefrontal cortex. That destroys your impulse control and totally wrecks your emotional regulation. Which brings us to Section 6, your new brain. Let's talk about rewiring your neurology. So, of all the habits we've covered today, task switching, those endless notifications, perfectionism, which of these brain-draining habits are you actively doing right now? Really, take a second to honestly reflect on that. Because recognizing the specific ways that you are sabotaging your own brain is absolutely the very first step to taking back your mental energy. Now, the key here is how to transform your routine safely. Listen to me, do not try to fix all 7 of these today, please. That is just going to cause way more cognitive overload, and we don't want that. Instead, pick just one habit, apply the specific neurofix we talked about for 30 days straight. Let your brain actually rewire itself, and then once that habit is successfully broken, you move on to the next one. 1 month, 1 habit at a time. That's the secret. There's this quote from Julia Vieira that just really hits hard. She says, "You only please everyone if you don't take a stand." Protecting your brain's energy, limiting your inputs, and setting real boundaries. It means accepting that not everyone is going to be happy with you. And you know what? That is perfectly okay. You are prioritizing your own mental clarity over their temporary approval. And that's exactly what you should be doing. I want to leave you with one final thought for today. We talked earlier about how multitasking is essentially just leaving dozens of mental drawers open, completely draining your brain's battery. So, what is the very first mental drawer that you are going to actively close today? Choose just one thing, give it your absolute undivided focus, and start reclaiming your brain power.